Welcome to Days of Futurecast, a gaming podcast, X-Men 97 podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ekvar, and alongside me, we've got Steve Saylor. How are you?
Hey, what's up? I'm excited to talk the last episode of the season. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
And we've got Camille on the roster as well. How are you this week?
I know I will sacrifice myself for you guys if I needed to.
Aw.
How to let you know.
Aw,
That feels
thank
good.
you. That's
But then
very
I
sweet
won't.
of you.
Oh, wow. That's a whiplash right there.
Like this episode.
Caboose, how are you?
Yeah, I wouldn't sacrifice anybody. I just want the cool celestial armor.
You would sacrifice us for a bit of cosplay.
People are like, wait, I get to be Isan, okay?
Yeah, I just get to talk to Isan. Like, hook me up. Yeah, doing good. There was a finale that aired for the show.
Look at that. I sense the energy already. Like I'm excited
what?
to get into
So excited to talk about it,
everyone's
aren't we?
super jazzed about this. So for everyone tuning in, we've been covering X-Men 97 season 2 week to week. It's been a lot of fun getting together every single Wednesday. So if you haven't caught up on all of our prior recaps, definitely go check that out, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get a podcast. We'll be there, as well as ton of other content as well. I mean, just pimping out some other stuff. We had a great conversation about Grand Theft Auto 6. Aaron, you're putting together an entire thing about Marvel's Wolverine. So if you want to keep the X-Men energy going, definitely check that out by the time tomorrow rolls around, if this goes live. I don't know when this goes live versus zero. It's a whole thing. It's going to be there eventually. So definitely subscribe to the feeds, keep it engaged. This episode is going to be all about the final episode of the season, Survival of the Fittest, written by Brian Ford Sullivan, and this wraps up all 9 episodes of the season. So I want to do things a little bit differently this episode. I do want to go around the horn, get everyone's thoughts on the episode specific, throw out a ranking for the episode, but then at the end, let's also talk about the season as a whole. Like before we wrap things up, we'll throw it just throwing a rating out for season 2 as a whole, because I think that's worth a conversation there as well. But let's throw it over to you, Steve. How did you feel about episode 9, Survival of the Fittest?
When you have a whole season building up to this big bad villain, who we've talked about many times before about Apocalypse, and you build up this whole finale that everything comes together and everything lines up, and it's supposed to be this big explosive finale, and then you have the main villain of the whole season show up for 30 seconds. That kind of feels like my sentiment about the whole season. It just felt really like this wasn't a finale for a season. It just felt like, okay, when's the next episode coming out? Because we definitely need to, figure out what's the ramifications of this. And I don't know. It just felt, and we kept asking ourselves, or we keep saying that we hope that the finale was, they're going to stick the landing. I feel like that they not only didn't stick the landing, they fumbled and tackled to the point where they basically got injured from the landing. They barely even had a parachute to land.
No, yeah.
And so I think I probably would give this episode a 5 out of 10.
Oh, dang.
Okay. All right. Camille, how are you feeling?
I feel like I'm probably going to score this the highest out of everybody based on your facial reactions. In my head, I thought of this episode as 2 different things. Yes, the finale, which it is, and we know, but also as a standalone episode. And I think for a standalone episode, this actually is a very solid episode. The disappointment comes when we find out that there's no episode after that. So as I was watching the episode, I'm like, okay, well, they're probably going to do this to tease to this big thing that's going to happen at the end. And that moment doesn't really come. However, I did shed tears in this episode. I actually cried at the end of this episode. So for that reason, I'm actually going to score this episode as an episode alone. So not my seasonal score. Episode alone, this is an 8 for me.
Okay. Aaron, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm so disappointed. I am like first of all, I don't know if it was like an incorrect IMDb listing or whatever have you went wrong there. I thought there was going to be another 15 minutes, or there was supposed to be. Like when I clicked on the episode and I saw that it was 30 minutes, I was like, wait, is this episode 9?
Yeah.
I had to like go back
Yep.
out of Disney Plus and be like, hold on, I'm not on the
Did it
finale,
update?
am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
And then I was like,
So did I.
Oh, I am. Okay, so we're wrapping this up in half hour. Yeah, I don't know. Really, really disappointing. I think there's the resolution to everything is done so fast. There isn't nearly enough time for any character moment to breathe. There is an emotional ending, which I'll be honest, like it got to me a little bit too, but it just and then it was so abrupt. It was so abrupt. Like
Mhm.
I was into it. I was feeling it. I was trying to like experience this finale, and then the credits started rolling. I was like, wait, what do you mean? Where's like the rest? I don't know. I was very, very disappointed. We were talking every single week up until this point about these filler episodes and how not much buildup is being created for Apocalypse as this big bad, as this final villain, as this huge showdown that they're going to go up against in this finale. And then, and it's very clear why it felt that way to us, because that just seemed to be not what they wanted to go for at all, like even in the slightest. And it's weird because they started this episode in a way where I was like, okay, we're doing something that means like they can stand a chance, only for it to be like, no, we're doing something to obliterate this whole finale and this big bang in 2 seconds. And I was just, I don't know. I was really upset with it. I'm going to go really low. I'm sorry, guys. This is like a 4 out of 10 for me. Like it was below the midway point. It like genuinely, as an X-Men fan, it upset me what this episode did for this entire season for me.
Fair enough. I'm kind of coming at it from like 2 different angles. I agree with a lot of the sentiment that Camille's saying, is that I think analyzing this episode as an episode of X-Men 97, I think that there's a lot to appreciate. I think everything that they did with both Rogue and Nightcrawler was pretty captivating, pretty interesting and everything. But that being said, as an episode of storytelling, I was like, oh, it's the exact same thing you're saying, Aaron, that it lacked cohesion. The pacing was all over the place. And I'm actually a little disappointed that I wasn't able to record with you guys for last episode, because that was my breaking point. That was when I was just like, fuck it. We're just having fun at this point. So like coming into this one, I had no expectations. I was like, there's no way they're going to actually land this, especially after last episode. I was like, no way. So you know what? Throw caution to the wind. We're just going to have fun. And from that aesthetic, it was just the 30 minutes of just action figures banging into each other, just like this. And then, yeah, we got like one huge emotional payoff at the very end that was not set up whatsoever, in my opinion, but still somehow just, I think it's my care of certain characters. I was like, wow, okay, I'm feeling something. And then, yeah, exactly. It hard cuts to the most abrupt cutting of like the credits I think I've ever seen in a television show. Like it was so jarring, but I was like, since episode 4, I've just kind of like crushed my hopes and dreams of what this season can do, that by the time I got here, I was already so like battered and beaten. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like it means nothing to me at this point. My level of investment into this season dwindled to such a degree that I was like, yeah, certain things happen here that are comically absurd, that I was like, yeah, of course it does, because this is a season that has been taken over by the What If crew. So I can see it. I see it in the ones and zeros. We're just having fun at this point. Like my emotional payoff, it is nothing here. So from that perspective, I give this episode like a 6 out of 10. I mean, I'm not as offended by it, only because the rest of the experience has been so offensive that I'm like, okay, this is the bar now. And
think-
that's my feeling.
I think hearing both you and Camille about like being a little bit more higher on it than me and Aaron are, but like I kind of get what you're both are saying, and it made me kind of like sort of think. It's like, you know what, as a standalone episode, I think that this was great. Like, again, it was very much like, yeah, as you said, like the action figures banging against each other, and and just having fun. And I've said this throughout the whole entire season. Like, the action pieces and the animation is like top of the industry. Like, they have done. They have basically pushed themselves to the absolute like limits of what animation can do, and then surpassed it. And I want more like 2D animation shows like this. I like, maybe not necessarily in this particular style, but I hope Disney and Marvel can be able to invest in more in this, because it obviously works. And I think that it definitely is something that a medium that they were experts in, of course, is going back to like 100+ years for Disney. But I think that I think that it's really what fell flat for me was the fact that I think that it's like, you build up this big villain and then he's only there for 2 minutes out of the full 30-minute episode, which I thought, again, I thought it was supposed to be 45 and we only got 30 minutes. And then it felt like it didn't live up to the first, I mean, we'll just say the first 4 episodes of the season. That they definitely did not pay off what they set up. And who knows, maybe they're going to pay it off in season 3. But when you have, and I get it, hey, we're all used to seasons where they have to end on like a bigger, more emotional moment, or a bigger sort of moment. Like, they put all the budget into a season finale just to, kind of hopefully satisfy the story that they've been telling throughout the whole season. We've been expecting that of a lot of TV shows, and X-Men is no different. But I think that for me, when we don't have the main villain of the entire show, and the fact he's the fact that he's just there for a few minutes and then that's it, and then to also set it up for the next season that goes in a completely different direction than I actually expected. No. That I'm like, okay, so we're focusing on this now instead of like what we should have been. Like, to me, it just didn't make any sense. I think that kind of like it was the first time I actually like even noticed some of the writing was a bit off. Because I think there was like one line where like Nathan Summers like tells Cable after he did something. I won't say spoilers because we're not in spoilers yet, but like he says like, "What have you done?" And I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what he was gonna do. like,
I know exactly the scene that And there's a follow-up line after that I'm like, we're really just hamming it in at this point. So I do want to get into specifics and some spoilers and everything. So for people who have not had the chance to go watch it, please do. We're going to spoil the entire episode, talk about some very spoilerific things. So if you care enough, go check it out on Disney Plus. Come back, check out the rest of the episode, or keep tuning in and we'll spoil it. But I was just kind of shocked by the fact that getting to this episode, it wasn't even X-Men versus Apocalypse. It was just X-Men versus X Factor. And I mean, with that lens, a lot of the episodes and the way certain episodes were framed make a lot more sense. Not that it's satisfying in any way, but you could kind of see the breadcrumbs being left a lot more cohesively than the Apocalypse storyline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah,
I think like half the season was Apocalypse, and then the other half was, as you said, X Factor, and they just couldn't decide on what was the main storyline for the whole season 2, or like Apocalypse. If Apocalypse was A story, X Factor was B story, and then they just kind of took a hard swerve and they flipped it to basically being the A story.
Well, I think like when a few episodes back, when we realized, oh, we're really in these subplots, that's kind of like you mentioned, Steve, like my expectations of like whether we discussed it as well, like thinking that Apocalypse wouldn't be the defeated in this season, right? That's when my expectations just went like that. And that's why I think when I was going into this episode and very much looking at it as a standalone episode, the animation was just absolute, like the fight scenes were just so good. Yep. When Rogue goes and sees Isan and then her skin is just ripping off.
Oh my God.
Hand.
Oh, yeah.
It was done, like it was so well done. And I think for me, as like visually, I was just like, this is like really top-notch animation. And the whole build up to, yes, it's like X Factor versus X-Men rather than an X-Force rather than the Apocalypse storyline. I think I kind of expected it, but like I was saying, like a part of me was like, oh, Xavier's gonna have to go in his mind, and then Apocalypse, something's gonna happen with Apocalypse. So I was setting up an expectation that there was more this was gonna lead to, and I think if they even made that tiny like adjustment as a season finale, I think it would have paid off much more to see some sort of fight again with Apocalypse and maybe a lingering Apocalypse to set up for Onslaught, essentially, maybe, like to tease to something of that magnitude. I know, like, you guys were talking about the briefness of the episode as well, but for me, when it's learned that Nightcrawler actually sacrificed himself, I actually liked that was abrupt and it was subtly set up, because when Rogue leaves, Beast and Nightcrawler's like, wait a second, like from that hug, because they're siblings, he knows her so well, he realized something was up. And then he was like, what did she have to say there? What did she say? What did the ship say? It was, there's a sacrifice you have to give. So he already tuned in. And I think because then we got action with X-Force and, the X-Men, it was like kind of sitting at the back of our heads, like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about that moment. So then when Beast appears with Nightcrawler's Bible at the end, and she's like, wait, what just happened? I liked how that was abrupt. My issue, then they continued the abruptness. So although myself, I was crying at that moment, like I was in tears because I was actually shocked at it. And Nightcrawler is one of my favorite X-Men. Yeah. And it's so in line with him as a character, but I wasn't expecting that to happen because it wasn't set up. And I was kind of like rolling my eyes with them setting up that Rogue would have to sacrifice herself, because we've seen that done so many times with couples in shows, right? Or one sacrifices for the other. So I was kind of happy that they kind of swung the surprise sacrifice in there. But then like you see the picture of Nightcrawler while she's reading next to Remy, and then it's just like, wait a second, like she doesn't seem like she's mourning.
Yeah, she's just kind of smiling, and her and Gambit are just like, what a beautiful day. And I'm just like, fucking hello? Like,
and like none of the X-Men, because like then they cut to the next scene and it's all the X-Men back at the mansion, like nothing happened. I'm like, Nightcrawler is a huge part of the X-Men. Like, I feel like there would have 97
he was like,
there would have been a feeling of more loss, I thought. And it was sad that there wasn't that. Also, my other issue with this episode, how was it that Val knew about the Celestials? Like, I was like, how is it that she has a gauge for Remy in terms of the celestial energy versus?
Who knows?
And how do they tap in to know exactly like it's at 85%? Like,
guys, we're thinking way too much. We're giving like
I know. But I agree with you, Camille.
Because it's like Apocalypse is a big baddie. You don't know exactly how he was made. The whole mystery behind the Celestials, I think, should have been played up more. And even though they tried to power Rogue with that power, I did kind of get like a pink washing of that final battle, because then she turns all sparkly, and then in just one touch of her hand it's all solved, which that was my issue as a season finale. Even if they went this way, I feel like there should have been more of a fight between Apocalypse and Rogue.
Agreed.
If they wanted to do that,
because technically their power level should be somewhat scaled, because they're both using the same celestial technology and stuff like that. I want to go back to something that you were saying, Camila, that Nightcrawler's ending was really impactful. I love Nightcrawler as a whole, so like that definitely touched me. The issue I have with it is that it just seems really lazy for the writers to continually use death as like a musical chair number, where it's like, oh, Gambit died, well now we're bringing Gambit back. Magneto died, which I think one of the best scenes in the season and everything. Oh, but then Gambit died again, but now Rogue has to sacrifice herself, but now Nightcrawler does. By the end of it, I was like, does anything matter at this? Like, are there stakes at all? Because it just kind of seems like we're flippantly going through, like, Gambit got shot in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's Apocalypse inside of him or anything, Cable shot him in the head, and
Yeah.
his head was like smoking and everything, and then he just
Yep.
like pops out. I was like,
And also, like,
Okay.
I know they were trying to wrap this up in 30 minutes, but when he got shot in the head, in my brain, I was like, oh crap, because he is the Horseman of Death. So that would bring out Apocalypse. Like, I'm trying to meet in the middle of the things that are not said, because this is a 30-minute episode, and no one talks about that. Like, no one talks about, oh, well, how is it that Apocalypse gained power over Remy? Like, no one says, they're just stuck saying, Nathan, what have you done? And it's like, well, someone be like, oh, it must have been like he is the Horseman of Death. Like, you brought back the Horseman of Death, and now Apocalypse, like, and you use death to bring Apocalypse back. And even like Apocalypse's one-liners, it's just kind of like, for the villain that they built up this whole season, like, you deserve to be slapped if this is the real villain that you were, because you're wimp.
and
Yeah.
I'm a huge mark for anything Gambit. Like, don't get me wrong. You put Gambit in anything, I'm there. I'm hooked, line and sinker. I love Gambit, top to bottom. But I was even still a little disappointed in his fight sequence, where I'm like, you went as far as to make a point of changing his playing cards to tarot cards, but he still fights the exact same. There's nothing changed with him, especially after the ramifications of, quote unquote, becoming the Horseman of Death and everything. I'm like, it's just, you're the same character. There is no, there's nothing, I guess, reflective in this whole journey we've taken since his death in season 1 to now.
I think that, and this has been, I think, an issue I've noticed over the past technically 2 seasons of X-Men 97. And I get that this is sort of like the sort of the MO of how the story or how episodes are structured. But I feel like that this season in particular, there was a lot of moments that went by too quick because of the time of how much time they have per episode. They're not like the moments that should have more weight, as we've talked about, are basically given 10 seconds for that weight to matter, and then they move on immediately. Like, there was even the moment where Apocalypse takes over all of the X-Men and are about to attack Charles, and I thought that was going to be a huge moment where maybe Onslaught was going to come out, where in order to be able to, like, break away from all the X-Men, that Charles was going to have to, like, something was going to break mentally that would have unleashed Onslaught. Like, there's something like they were turned, and then immediately Rogue shows up, and it's like, okay, everyone's fine now. Like, it felt like that there was not enough time given for these moments. I think probably the only example where if you're given enough time to really let these moments sit and let these moments like especially how emotional they can be, to show how good that they can do that in X-Men, was when Magneto died.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that whole sequence, that whole last quarter of the episode, last third act of that episode, it was emotional. It still had a lot of action. It had a lot of story. It had amazing dialogue, and they let that moment sit for a while, to the point when he died. I felt, as much as I agree with you, Camille, Nightcrawler, that him sacrificing himself should have had a bigger moment, because as much as I like Nightcrawler as a character, and yes, even without they've set him up throughout the whole season as being like this, he's a man of faith, and he wants to be able to help everybody as much before himself. Like, yes, they build up these little moments, but that moment basically, like, wasn't given enough room to breathe. And I feel like that they are trying to jam so much into an episode that I think that's kind of been, I think for me, like, I don't know if maybe you all would agree, that's been its biggest downfall this whole season, because we're not given enough time for a story to develop. It's just, okay, got to move on to the next action beat, or got to move on to the next thing.
I would have been 1000% okay with them just airing the first 4 episodes this year, if it meant they could take an entire extra year to fully flesh out the rest of the season and really nail where they wanted to go and how they could have finished off this season. I would have absolutely taken a season 1 or season 2 part 1, and it's just the first 4 episodes, if it meant they could say, okay, let's not do 3 episodes of filler bullshit and then not stick the landing here. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I don't want to sound like too much of a hater. Okay, like there are some of those filler episodes. Like I will go back to them and enjoy them as just standalone episodes for sure. But it's just in the context of this whole season, there was a lot of meandering and a lot of dilly dallying. And yeah, like it didn't seem like the writers had like they weren't on the same page of what they wanted to be the main threat of this season. Like did they
like where the season was going. Like it kind of looks like they decided Apocalypse, and then when Magneto was died, it was killed. They're like, let's switch it, which could have worked. Could have worked, right? Like if they were like a world without Magneto, what are those X-Men? What are those mutants doing? Like who there's an uproar, and the X-Men have to come to kind of figure that out and then tease something at the end of the season that brings back an Apocalypse. It wouldn't have been the biggest payoff for the whole season, but it would have made it more cohesive as the overarching story. And it was, but I will say, okay, Jubilee does a Destructo disc, which
it's sick.
Really cool. And also cool. When Gambit holds on to multiple man and then like charges up.
Oh yeah.
Little moments like that, like there's like I said, the animation is never the problem, right? The action and the what they do with the animation and these characters and the way they showcase their powers, that's always they're firing on all cylinders, right? That will be at least for me like a saving grace that'll have me tune in for every single season of this show that they might end up working on. But yeah, like from the story standpoint, I'm so bummed out. They set up all this stuff in those first 4 episodes, and I was really confused because it's like, I guess what they intended was that version from the past, that Apocalypse, is the Apocalypse that they end up fighting in the original series, which they do end up defeating, I guess, right? Like that Apocalypse has been taken down, and then it was the future Apocalypse that comes to the past that then is the one that's like fusing the game. But it's just like why couldn't we just have that scary ass grinning Apocalypse as he's killing Magneto be the one that they have to go toe to toe against?
I do want to recognize like how much of an uphill battle this entire team had to like go through, knowing like the DeMeo factor and everything. So that's why I'm kind of curious of like season 3 will be the testing factor of like, this is fresh slate. They didn't even set up like a huge cliffhanger. Sure, there was that post credit with Mystique and everything, but it's certainly not like what they got dealt with season 1, where it's like, oh my God, now we have to deal with like 3 sets of X-Men across the time, dealing with, different sets of, Apocalypse in his life and everything. So at this point, given the fresh slate, not having anything even remotely touched by DeMeo at all, having like a partial written season and everything, I'm interested to see if this team can actually come up with something engaging, come up with something cohesive, not have to deal with like anything that this season had to, because that will be the writing on the wall for this show of whether or not like I actually care about season 3 and beyond.
This is kind of a writing on the wall though, even with the tease, which I'm pretty sure we'll talk about. They, like Steve said, like they didn't set up anything relating to Apocalypse, so like we're done with him.
I hope so. At this point, I hope so.
Well, here was the thing that kind of made me think, like as we were talking, it made me think, okay, what as a season as a whole, like, because the line that stood out to me the most, and they had it in the recap of this episode, was when Apocalypse says we need to be, I need to take out the X-Men at their most vulnerable in the 90s. And I was like, okay, if we had to sort of think about the season as a whole, like we had the first 4 talking, like, setting up Apocalypse and everything and his origins and all that. And then we had the filler episodes, which, we had obviously like mixed feelings about, but it did sort of setting up this sort of, like, as we said, this subplot of like X Factor and like X-Force versus the X-Men, like all 3 of them. And even building up to this like finale of them essentially X Factor and X-Force like taking on the X-Men and destroying the X-Men tower or the X Tower. And then like it felt like it could have been that vulnerable moment when everyone was at each other's throat. And it could have, I've almost felt like as soon as Apocalypse shows up, something could have happened that he's like, this was the moment that the X-Men were at its most vulnerable because everyone was against each other. And this is when I need to strike. If they had done that, I would have forgiven 100% all the filler episodes that we had issues with.
Yeah.
Because they were setting that up the entire time to be this sort of like, X-Force is not
'Cause then
liking
the
what
X
X-Men are
Factor stuff
doing.
makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And but you know what, too? I mean, Apocalypse is still in Nathan's back pocket, essentially.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
he could still come back.
Oh yeah,
But
they
like
leave the door open.
even if they
Yeah.
were like Nathan, like when he got the gem, was like, wait a second, this is wrong. Something's not right. And it's like, wait, this was the moment Apocalypse was actually waiting for. He wanted, like, you're playing right into Apocalypse's master plan and then tease it at the end. As a seasonal conclusion, it isn't good. It isn't
I also
good.
think that we kind of have all set ourselves up for disappointment as well, because we're doing this weekly show where a lot of the fun is speculating on what's going to happen next. Like, how many episodes have we been like, they're going to do Onslaught, they're going to do all these horsemen and everything, and then the writing team is like, we don't care about any of this. Like, we're doing something like way more simple, way more, popcorn.
And why show it? That's the thing.
Worried.
I'm not
worried,
disagreeing.
Honestly. I'm a little worried that the idea here is okay. I should say this. I use the term worried loosely, but essentially what I'm trying to say is I'm a little worried that the idea here is that they want to get like 8, 9, 10 seasons out of this show.
Yeah.
Right. And so they don't want to play their hand. They don't want to do Onslaught right away, because then it's like, well, we can't do Onslaught to close this thing out. But I'm worried they might not get there. And it's like, guys, just play the cards. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
But we had that question
you got a
of
good hand here. Go like raise. You know what I mean? Like, do not.
I think that's one of the issues, is that the escalation of the show. You ended season 1 with such like catastrophic ramifications for the team and left them off in such dire constraints, and then ending this season off, it's like, well, no, now they're all happy, and Mystique is doing like covert off shit. And I'm like,
that should have been
it
seems like a season 1 plot. And
exactly, 1000%. That was like filler episode stuff.
Like
the writers' room, like after everything that happened, and they were kind of left with the later half of the season trying to figure out where they go. Maybe that conversation of, wait, where do you go after Apocalypse? And if you were to do Onslaught, if you want this to be a 10-season show, like, we need to put a pause on it, because it's not gonna lead out to that, right? Which I disagree. I think there were many ways to do it, but them kind of taking a step back, and essentially it feels like it's a reboot of X-Men 97 going back to a Graydon Creed and like Mystique plot. It just feels like so original X-Men, like early seasons, that I'm just like, what are we doing here, man?
And to pull in some information that we got out of Comic-Con, I think it was Comic-Con. Well, regardless, wherever they showed like the first footage. So we do know for a fact that the Brotherhood of Mutants will be featured in season 3. So kind of to your point, it does kind of feel like they are trying to take a step back and do something a little more not grounded, but like street level.
Like mutant versus human.
Exactly. Something like that, like a political game or something like that. And again, they could be building up to something towards the future and everything, but I do think that maybe for the best for this writing team to go for something a little more simple, given the tumultuous handling of something as complex as Apocalypse and everything.
And I would have been okay with that if they left the Apocalypse open. Like, the fact that he's like in a gem now, like, okay,
they did leave it open. They did leave it open.
I mean, it does leave it open to a degree, but it's like, I think if they like, again, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not like, I know I'm armchair writer in this scenario, but it's like, if they where Apocalypse hit them at their most vulnerable, which would have been this moment, and they basically are like, and then he disappears back into the future or whichever, and then they spent the next season kind of like picking up the pieces, and then you have that sort of simpler, Brotherhood of Mutants, that kind of thing. Like, I would have been okay with that, but they tried to wrap up the Apocalypse story like with as like a tiny bow, like a tiny bow, so quickly that it just felt like, it feels like that they're taking a step back, and I don't know what season 3 is going to feel like if they took away their big bad after the end of season 2. Like, I don't know.
Apocalypse stuff, like for as open ended as they might have left it, it's more so of like a thing where they're like, we'll do this so that if we want to revisit it,
Right.
we have like an
Yeah.
avenue to.
Right.
It's less of like Apocalypse.
We
got
have a
away.
direction of where
know?
we are going next
Like
with
they're
Apocalypse.
like
Yeah.
I honestly would have preferred it to be just like a Apocalypse had to retreat. He had to go back to the future or something like
Yep.
that, and it was just like he's gone for now. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like in the sense that they didn't kill him, they didn't defeat him, but they pushed him far back enough that he had to retreat. And it's like, okay, now
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
that book is left open, and we'll flip
And that
the
would have
pages whenever
felt
the time comes.
That would have felt like that was the plan instead of using a backup of he's in a gem.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
Um,
to me, I just got to the end of this episode. I was like, if season 3 isn't like season 1 quality, let's wrap it up and just do Spider-Man 98.
I
Like, let's
think
just
so.
move on to something
I
else. You know,
think
like
so.
let's just.
I'd be
seeing
down for
more
that.
turn into Spider-Man characters. I just want to see Spider-Man get his
Dude,
his
seeing
return.
Morph transform into Doc Ock, I was like,
Doc Ock,
God,
yeah.
screw all of this.
Yeah,
Let's get
yeah,
back
yeah.
to Spider-Man.
Well, it was-
Spider-Man,
it-
please.
It's
I mean,
funny
they
'cause
must
I
have
was
had
watching,
conversations about that
um,
now with everything.
Oh,
that, like,
definitely. They
was
have
Brand New Day.
to.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because like I saw a clip of the OG Spider-Man where it's Blade, like Wessler talking to Spider-Man about Blade's origins, and I'm just like, man, we just need new Spider-Man and like all
Right.
these cameos of like
Good
really
Lord.
great like anti-heroes and villains coming in the fold. But yeah, like I don't know, like I don't know if I hear what you're saying, Caboose, but even if they didn't defeat Apocalypse, it would have felt like such a deja vu moment if he were to retreat, or like another moment of this lingering where it's like, I kind of wanted them to defeat him. Like I kind of wanted a huge fight at the end.
I would have
you
liked
know?
for him. I'm glad he got defeated. I'm not saying I'm glad he got defeated. I guess I wanted them
wanted
to
a
defeat
better
him in a more
defeat, yeah.
epic, grand
Yeah.
way. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I wanted there to be a fight against Apocalypse. I also,
Although-
you know, I you mentioned Steve the what if writers. What a what if moment. Just the what if there was the Gambit apocalypse? You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
Although that did look pretty
Oh
cool.
my
I'm gonna
God,
That
say
did
it
look
did
dope.
look pretty cool.
I was
I
like,
was like, okay, I'm on
No,
board
it
with that.
looked
kidding
so
me,
I
man.
hated
Like,
that design.
I loved it. I loved that he had the like apocalypse grin and then
Oh,
all the
I hated
tubes
it.
coming out. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I think that's pretty cool that they did that.
I hated it because it was Gambit, and I was like, I know nothing's gonna happen to him because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
Gambit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
Apocalypse, like it's Gambit Apocalypse.
They've
So
already
the-
played their hand in. Oh,
the-
he died, and then
the
got shot in the
threat is
head.
completely ripped
Which is
away
like,
out of
why
any of
did they?
that.
Why did Nathan need to shoot him in the head again? Like there was no risk there, right? Like there was
Yeah.
no moment for the viewer to like get emotionally attached to that moment because we saw Gambit die before, and
Right.
we knew like he's bad. We know
And,
he's
and that's my
bad,
point
so
of
it's
just
like,
using death as
yeah.
like musical chairs. It's like, okay, well, if this
Mhm.
person died, well, we'll bring him back. I guarantee Nightcrawler is going to come back for some reason in the future because he's such a popular character. Magneto too. And at a certain point, you just gotta kind of throw your arms up and you're like, there are no stakes in the show whatsoever.
Well,
if-
even
if
they
we're just playing
brought
fast
in-
and loose.
And they brought in the Celestials, which is like, even if it was a case where like, oh, where do we go? Like we already touched Apocalypse. Like we need to bring it back to like basics at X-Men in order to go into
Hmm.
season 3. Why also have Eson in for this moment?
Crazy.
Like, because
Who
like, it's
knows?
like, we didn't need him there if we're not going to do something more with that moment. And it just, I think for me, the most frustrating part is just to see a sparkly, magical rogue be able to defeat Gambit in one touch. I think that just does that character a huge disservice because Rogue is so powerful, which is just insane that like they didn't explore more of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was, and even like with the tease, right? Like Val killing. Are we talking? Can we?
Yeah,
talk
I think
about-
we
can.
Yeah,
We already
okay,
mentioned
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah. So Val being killed by Mystique. That's very Mystique. But really, like, come
Like, why
on,
do I
man.
care?
We've yeah, like
Yeah, why do we care?
I think the thing that irritated me about it was like, so we followed Val this entire season of like doing the wrong thing, it's forming X Factor and initiating like the wrong thing the entire time, and then she gets taken out and no one knows. And to me, I was just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, you just kind of like got away with it, and now you
also-
didn't get the punishment for any of the stuff that you did.
So yeah, what was it technically? So this is the uncertainty. Was it Mystique as Val, or was it Val as Val doing this? Because if it
They're
was,
gonna figure that out next season.
Yeah.
well, if it was actually Mystique as Val playing into trying to manipulate other mutants, because obviously Magneto's not there, but she's keeping the cause alive, I think that does it more justice. But like, we weren't given enough of the.
I actually
breadcrumbs there
don't.
for that.
I actually don't think that it was Mystique as Val this whole time, because they showed the news report that Graydon Creed became president, and he wasn't president during this whole season. So
How did he get out of the Arctic? Anyways,
I don't know.
He was
I mean, no, he
saved
was.
by
They found him because they already mentioned that.
They said he was found in the snow.
Yeah. So my guess is that this happened after this whole season, because and then it goes, as you said, Steve. It's like there was no consequences for Val at all.
The last season had this awesome build up and set with the character, and this is the thing, right? Because the last season 1 of X-Men 97, they wanted to tread old ground too. Apocalypse was in the original series, and they were like, we're gonna bring back Apocalypse, but our twist here is we're doing Gambit is the Horseman of Death. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that is such a sick concept. Let's build it up for 8 episodes and wrap it up in 30 minutes. This season, though, they're like, here we go, big setup for season 3. Mystique.
Great.
A character who hasn't been featured at all, so no build up. It's just, hey, now she's here.
But it would have been cool. It would have been cool if even it was now she's here. But like, if it was, okay, I'm trying to not be so critical of this episode, right?
It's hard.
I'm trying to think, okay, well, this is a way they could go about it. And again, we're speculating, and I'm speculating for sanity's sake to make myself feel a little bit better about how the season ended. Maybe it was Mystique throughout, right? And then it leaves the question, why would she want to help Graydon Krieg? Because we know Graydon Krieg said they were both horrible parents. Like, she went away, Sabretooth kind of abused him, and that's why he hates mutants, right? So it's like, okay, maybe there's more to this. Like, he's now president. Maybe she's kind of pulling some strings here and trying to make some things happen. But again, season 1 plot, like, that seems very season 1. And it's like, after you have Apocalypse, I don't know if you could go back to a political plot between humans and X-Men, unless they're trying to say maybe Apocalypse didn't think they were most vulnerable when everyone died, and and Gambit died, and that's not when they were most vulnerable. They're actually more vulnerable in potentially season 3 plot, where it's humans versus mutants, right? I don't know, man. I'm just pulling at strings trying to figure out.
It shows
where
such
they're
a
going.
lack of fundamental understanding to the characters, the world that you've created, when you introduce Mystique in the exact same breath that you killed off her son. Like, to me, it's just it just fundamentally shows that you either didn't think about it or just don't even care.
I mean, if they had set up something of like, again, like going off of like of building off that of maybe Apocalypse is out there like again, or like he's out there, like he's out there and like he's the all omnipresent threat throughout this whole thing. And like, okay, we're just going to take a break for season 3, but we're going to come back with Apocalypse at some point. And if that was the plan, they did not execute on that plan. But like, I would have been okay with that. And even like if they did something of like, okay, maybe Onslaught is behind the president or something like that, like just some sort of tease as if like, okay, there is more at stake here than just a human versus a mutant kind of like a story. I don't know. I need to like in order for me to be able to be excited for season 3 is I need to now see what the trailer is for season 3 of what kind of setting up what the season is going to be, because right now I don't have any interest in watching it.
Well, and the interesting thing is Mystique had a huge plot in the original series that had to do with like she actually indicates that she was remorseful for abandoning Nightcrawler and Rogue, essentially, right? So to your point, Steve, yeah, I think they forgot.
Yeah,
I think they forgot.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's like if these are the same characters from the original animated series, she probably knows that Nightcrawler's dead and should feel something.
And maybe they'll explore it. I don't know, but it's just weird.
I don't know.
But
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go around the horn. Rate the season as a whole, and then we'll wrap things up. Steve, how you
I
feeling
think I give
as
this
a whole?
I
Whole
think I
season.
would, regardless of kind of like, we've had some mixed feelings over the past few episodes. I think I probably would give this a season a 7. It's decent. If we were binge watching this the whole time, I think I probably would have been okay with it. I think they again, the animation was top notch. Some of the writing was probably some of the best writing I've seen in any medium, regardless of it being a cartoon or even just a TV show. And I think the characters were great. It was great to see some of like the cameos and even just some of the cool moments of some like X-Men that were showing up in this. Like I throughout the whole season, I felt like that I had a good time watching it as a whole. Yeah, I have nitpicks throughout the entire season, but that's neither here nor there. I had a blast basically the past like 2 months, like talking to you all about this and being able to watch this like every week. So I think I probably would give this this season a 7 out of 10. Not great, not terrible. It's just good.
How you feel, Camille?
Yeah, I think if you're thinking, well, you probably watch the season. If you're looking at the season and you look at it, I think it's a good time. You're going to enjoy the action. You're going to enjoy the cameos that Morph brings in and some of the references that are brought in if you're a core X-Men fan. But you probably won't like how the season ends and where it leaves so many plot holes and questions and kind of sloppy writing in the end. And for that, I'm going with a 6.5.
Aaron?
Yeah, those first 4 episodes are so strong for me, and I will be revisiting them very often. That for me is season 2. The rest is the bonus episodes that they were the
Deleted scenes.
Like what if, right? So I think as a whole, though, just because those first 4 episodes are so good, genuinely so good, it is like a 7 out of 10 for me. The rest of the season really bogged it down. But man, especially episode 4. I mean, we've already sung the praises of it. I could like that. That is right up there with Remember It for me from season 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a vacuum, those first 4 episodes would be a masterclass in animated storytelling, and especially within X-Men, like some of the best X-Men storytelling in a long, long time. But then, yeah, you get into the rest of the season, and I'm not excluding any of the great animation work. The Noon brothers always bring a killer soundtrack and score to the entire season. Like they never fumbled even once. Like even in the worst episodes, the episodes that I didn't like all that much, the music has always been there. The animation is top notch. And I would love to see that animation team continue to go on and do other projects and tackle other things. But that being said, I really do hope that the writing team can kind of bounce back from this. And I know that season 3 is already in the can to some degree, so I don't know if they'll be able to react as much as I kind of hope that they would be able to. But that remains to be seen. But as far as this season, yeah, I would give it a 7 only because goddamn, those first 4 episodes really hard carry the rest of the season. And yeah, I do say that if you were watching this all in like one go, or like, spread across like 2 days in a binge watch thing, I think it would be a little more digestible. But as a week to week, if I wasn't hanging out with you guys, Aaron left because he doesn't care. He's
so frustrated.
He's over it.
Yeah.
He's so frustrated.
I don't know why it kicked me out.
If we weren't doing this show, I would probably have waited for like a lot of these episodes just kind of like stack up and just kind of binge watch them all. But that being said, yeah, I think I was just kind of disappointed. But yeah, 7 out of 10 for me for this season. Yeah. But that about does it. This season, it's been a wild ride. We'll no longer be getting together every single week to talk about it. I know.
8 episodes.
Another year, another 2.
If you all want to watch Star Trek, Camille and I are going to be...
we're doing that. We're doing that.
I'm busy.
Now you're busy. I see.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna.
Lame.
Oh, mine too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we should probably go
We should
check
do
that out. Yeah, we should do that. But we appreciate every single one of you for tuning in, hanging out with us through the highs and lows of this season. We really appreciate you. And please subscribe to the feed. Check out all the other great content, whether it's the reviews or our weekly show that we do over on the podcast. So appreciate you all. And until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.